she expressed to me that she would go full vegan,
Right.
but she was advised to have red meat. I think hers was once or twice a month to help with her anemia.
Interesting, yeah. Howdy.
Good afternoon, sir. Everyone should be vegan. Prove wrong. One question.
Yes.
For a person who is anemic in a certain situation,
Okay.
where they have, iron deficiency, and they are told to eat red meat to help improve their iron, what should they do as a vegan alternative to that?
Sure, so plenty of plants. There's about 20,000 different edible plant foods out there.
Really?
So many of them have iron. You can actually, if you're getting what calorically your body should be getting in just plant foods, whole food plants, then you shouldn't have any problem with iron. It's when
Right.
people don't eat enough calories that's the issue. Now, meat is calorically dense. You can have a tiny piece of meat and it's going to make you feel full,
Yeah.
but that's loaded with cholesterol, fat, stuff that's going to kill your body, and it doesn't have a lot of nutrients. The iron that we do find in meat is called heme iron, and that's a cancer-causing chemical. For the body. So yeah, there's just no reason you don't want to do it. All meat's carcinogenic as well. Like if asbestos and cigarettes had some iron in them, would we eat them or feed them to our children? No, of course not. That'd be crazy. We would find a healthier alternative.
I see.
Yeah, you can eat an abundance of plants. I think the like kale, dark leafy greens, I believe have a lot of iron in them.
I've heard about that.
Okay, so yeah, and there's great resources. Do you struggle with this yourself?
No. A
Okay.
friend of mine has. She expressed to me that she would go full vegan,
Right.
but she was advised to have red meat. I think hers was once or twice a month to help with her anemia.
Interesting, yeah. That
I
can be
don't-
rough, man. I really sympathize with people that have those eating disorders and digestive problems. I mean, that can also cause psychological issues too, and trauma. It's really difficult to cope in a society that's pummeling you with fast food and junk food and misinforming the masses on what a healthy diet is. It's really difficult to cope in society when your doctor's telling you need to eat a carcinogenic product that you don't necessarily need to eat.
I see.
But if you want, I'd love to give you a resource to give her if you think she'd be interested. I would tell her to go to nutritionfacts.org, and I would also have her check out vegan22.com. It'll provide her a free mentor that will help her figure out how to make sure she's not deficient in anything and keep eating what she's eating now. So pasta, pizza, ice cream, that type of stuff.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I did have a couple things I want to ask. So so there was a study done on cannibalism in other tribes that were like in third world countries.
Sure.
That when they were to partake in cannibalism as part of a ritual, they actually would develop these like mental problems later on in life.
Right.
What they found out was that in the human body, in our muscles, we actually have this certain protein or something like that, some kind of piece in our DNA that if another human consumes it, and it's just at the right time and place or whatever, or however medically that could happen, that it could cause a degenerative brain disorder,
neurological problems. Totally. I've heard of that.
Would that happen in? Does that happen in all forms of meat, or is that just for?
That's a really good question. I know cannibalism. I've heard about that having unique neurological adverse side effects.
Yes.
But there are other neurological degradation issues with consuming plants. Meat and animal agriculture products.
Yeah, I'm just like you're advocating for
I know,
vegans, bro.
Like dairy, for example, is the leading cause of Alzheimer's and dementia.
Really?
Yeah, and this is relatively new research, but it's all peer-reviewed, double-blind, randomized controlled studies that are indicating this. And so, the optimal way to function as a human is to ingest things. Your food is your fuel, and we've been evolving to eat a certain type of fuel for a very long time in order to function optimally and push our evolution rather than push us to a closer, death, higher mortality rates. We're finding vegans on average have way lower mortality rates. They live about 15% longer. Even if they're not eating the healthiest vegan diet, whole food, plant-based diet. Even if they're just eating a bunch of processed vegan junk food, they're not getting a bunch of exercise. Even then, those vegans have way lower mortality rates and health problems. But like the leading cause of death for humans is heart disease, heart-related problems. And the only place we get clogged arteries is from meat, dairy, and eggs, they'll have cholesterol and fats that get added into the body that you just don't need, that clog your arteries, whereas plants, no plants have all these added cholesterols, and then we only get that from eating the flesh of dead animals and their secretions and stuff.
I thought there was good cholesterols.
The body produces its own cholesterol.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, so that's the good cholesterol that you want. I mean, I think there might be some cholesterol in like oils, but humans we didn't evolve to eat oil versions of plants. So like if you eat coconut oil, I think that might spike your cholesterol a little bit, but nowhere near as much as eating like animal agriculture products. But yeah, the leading cause of humans, actually the top 14 out of 15 causes of death, like I was saying, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, obesity, all forms of cancer, even like I was saying, Alzheimer's, dementia, all of the top 14 out of 15 killers of humans are related to animal agriculture consumption.
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Now this is completely concluded in the scientific community. This is the consensus that they've reached. It's no longer disputable. Right. We have overwhelming data to show that. But actually, the only one out of the top 15, one of the killers that can't be solved with a vegan diet is getting hit by a bus.
Yeah, the automotive accident.
Yeah. You know.
I was about to say that. I'm like,
funny.
I don't know if veganism can help with that.
It won't stop you, from getting hit by a bus. Sadly.
Does it make me bulletproof?
This close to being bulletproof. It does maximize your cognitive functioning and blood flow throughout your whole body, including your brain. So that would make you sharper when you're crossing the street. You're a little more aware. So maybe at least reduce your risk of being hit by a bus. But no, it won't save you. Accidents happen regardless. But it's just fascinating how many killers there are of humans that don't need to be there. We should be dying relatively natural causes, and sadly, that's not what's happening, and it's all because of our own personal day-to-day lifestyle habits.
Right. What is? Forgive me for my stutter.
No, you're good.
What is? Why do we choose to live this life? Because the thing is, I just had a chicken burrito right now.
Yeah.
Yet I completely agree with everything that vegans do.
Sure.
I just can't seem to break that habit. So what?
It's tough.
Why is that?
Well, these products are addictive. They contain addictive properties, and bodies will develop dependencies on habits. So like when you smoke a bunch of cigarettes, you're a cigarette smoker, you're totally addicted. Say you quit for about a week and then you backslide and you have a cigarette. Right. You're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I was feeling shitty and now I feel better. Now I had a cigarette. Oh, my body feels great. I love smoking. But that's not because the cigarette is good for you. It's because your body had depended on it for so long. And we're gonna feel the same way with damaging products like animal agriculture, foods and stuff like that. But yeah, it is a cultural tradition. We have been indoctrinated and ingrained with this belief system, this systematic social structure that tells us you have to eat these products to be healthy, to be happy, for the world to go on the way it is. You can't stop because it's culture. But when we look at culture, we realize that it alone isn't inherently moral. There's Saudi Arabia, they still perform female genital mutilation on children. And they say, well, it's our culture. You can't change it, it's our culture. But they have no reason to be doing that. So of course it's completely immoral. We need to abolish those things. So just because we've been doing something for a long time doesn't make it a thing that we need to continue doing. Yeah,
and I would agree with you there because just this past Thanksgiving, we had this guy, he wasn't even a part of our family, the guy was a total douchebag. He just happened to saunter in because he knows my uncle, but this guy, and he also tried hitting on my sister, which was really fun. So I was talking about China and our relationship with him. I think that, and I said I think we should be a little bit more offhanded and trying to be and being so open to everything that everyone does all the time, including ourselves, including them. And I was just so I don't think that that particular society has a certain principle that I cannot agree with, and I think should really, really be discussed, which was the Hong Kong protests leading to the indictment of various people who were just trying to be part of free speech.
Sure.
because Hong Kong it's legal to have free speech over there. In China, it's not legal. You have to get like this sort of sanctioned government placement in order to like allow you to speak.
Yeah, journalism is heavily suppressed over there.
Being journalism, and to me that's and they started indicting people, having them or not indicting. I don't know. They would
like prosecuting people.
Sure. Have them try taking them from their safe place in Hong Kong and bringing them over there, and it just I don't know. It makes me irk inside because I'm a journalism major and I'm just like,
cool.
Really? I'm like, really? You're people who are just trying to tell the truth, trying to tell the world what it needs to know for the public to be informed, so that governments don't take advantage of the people. What's so wrong with that? And this gentleman who came to Thanksgiving dinner, his response is that China, that's their own stuff. They can do whatever they want. What we need to focus on is the trade routes. I'm like, the money. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I was just like.
Yeah, that's the thing is whenever we do go in and meddle in these other countries' business, it's always to the benefit of the elite few that want to make more money. It's always about exploitation of the lives overseas and making more of a profit, and they put it in the guise of humanitarianism.
The lack of the questioning of the ethics is astounding, because I'm just like, really, you're okay with remaining complicit if that means it's like saying, yeah, no, you're totally fine being a malicious dictator who's who caused genocide to millions of people, but we gotta have those trade routes. I'm like, I don't really get it.
Yep.
I don't know why.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Bottom line is really scary.
Yeah. Yep.
Because what happens to the bottom?
You get wiped off.
Yeah. Sorry to take up a bunch of your time, but
no, I appreciate you hanging out and chatting with me, man.
Yeah. Good luck with this today.
Thanks.
Good luck for what I assume are going to be some very very friendly people and some very not friendly people.
Fortunately, I haven't had anyone too confrontational. There was one time a couple weeks ago where one guy was walking back and forth while I was talking to a group of people, and he was going, "Nobody fucking wants to eat carrots. We all want to eat fucking cows." He was recording me with his phone, and I said, "Hey man, why don't you come down and we'll talk about it?" And he immediately snapped. He changed. He was like, "Oh, okay. You want to talk about it?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Can I sit down?" Like, of course. Yeah.
I'm a person just like you. I'm just trying to talk with people.
When you're patient and you engage with people and you level with them, I was like him at one point where I was like, veganism's stupid, this is not possible, it's a radical extreme lifestyle, when actually it's just very, very simple. By definition, it means reduce cruelty in your life as much as practically possible.
Yeah.
And the least we can do is just cut out the animal agriculture products. When you go to the store, instead of grabbing this product, move your hand this way, replace it with the cruelty-free product and you're done. Very, very simple.
It's like, it's very simple. It's very, very simple. Just because I'm not saying I'm going to go full vegan after this. But I am saying that thank you for the education and also being willing to have the conversation. That's the most important thing here, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, but then when he sat down, he immediately started telling other people the benefits of going vegan. Yeah. So like that, within seconds, he went from being this anti-vegan to being a vegan activist, and sitting here trying to inform people, hey, you can get all your protein from plants and all this stuff. It's pretty amazing. So that's probably the most confrontational I've ever had to deal with someone. And even then, he started opening up and listening to the truth.
Yeah, well, it's
amazing.
It's just people. The only people who plug their ears probably don't even approach this table at all. I think that approaching, for one thing, shows a sign that you're willing to learn or be.
Most of the people I talk to are right there on the cusp, or they have been vegan and vegetarian, and they're like, I kind of want to get back into it, but I think I was missing some information, and they just have questions.
Sure.
Yeah. What do you think would be the biggest obstacle for you to?
My girlfriend loves cheese.
Sure, yeah. Did you know that dairy products, especially cheese, because it's highest concentration of dairy, it has casomorphine in it? Have you ever heard of this chemical?
I have not.
It creates the same wiring in the brain that heroin does, that makes you dependent addicted to the product, because
Yeah.
cows produce casomorphine to get their babies to know that I'm your mom, and the babies come back, you know, saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, mom, you love me," and that's the sensation it gives us. Like, cheese is our mom, and it loves us.
Right,
So it's
right.
really hard to quit. But there's great vegan cheeses out there. Once you go through, give 22-day vegan challenge, vegan22.com, and see if you guys can find some vegan cheeses. And I mean, they're everywhere now, so easy to find. And see if you can start the withdrawal process, because
Yeah.
I mean, she probably wouldn't like seeing a mother cow raped by a human. That's what we do. We go in there and forcibly inseminate them with our fists. Isn't that disgusting? And then the babies can't drink the milk because we humans want the milk. So we take the babies and cut their throat within days of being born. And we sell it as meat. Yeah, and then those mother cows, they are only children when they're raped repeatedly over and over and
Yeah,
over.
well, things if they get too old, then they can't produce it as often.
Yep, so they only live a few years old when they could live to be like 25.
Yeah.
And then we cut their throats for meat. So the
Yeah.
dairy industry is actually so much worse, you know, ethically and health-wise, because it's contributing to the meat industry and all this torment and sadistic, like, bestiality going on.
Right.
But your girlfriend probably would look at footage of that and go, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this is standard practice. This is humane dairy. This is organic, free-range farms. I don't want any of this
There's no
garbage."
such thing as free range.
I know, huh? Yeah, because they're all caged in anyway, you
Yeah.
know? Even chickens in the free range, they're all in a barn. They're just not in cages. They're just crammed into a tiny barn.
Free range, the only requirements for that is that they are released from their, and they get, for some it's like released from their cages for, I think it was 20 minutes to an hour
Wow,
a day.
yeah.
For some practices. Others, it was just humane product meant that they had a cage that was that they had a cage that was like, I think it was like
Nice.
and they got about just 6 inches larger than what the
Right.
was, because they could spread their wings. Mm-hmm. Great.
Crazy. It makes us feel better seeing those labels, you know, humane slaughter and free range cage free organic on the packages. Those labels make us feel good and a little bit less guilty, but in reality it doesn't change what's happening to the victims.
Yeah. So a friend of mine, he hunts. He hunts. He's vegetarian for most time, except when he hunts.
Okay.
So he is the reason why he does that is because he when he hunts with his family, he doesn't want to take any sort of processed anything like that from any sort of company trying to, you know, make money off of it. Whenever he goes out and tries to hunt, he wants to have a better appreciation for how the life cycle begins and ends, you know? Like, and like animal taken out, and they get you use everything with it to do with it. I don't know, it was an interesting lifestyle choice from him, and just I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, unfortunately, again, for the victim, it doesn't really change things.
Yes.
They were out there minding their own business. I mean, you've seen Bambi. We've all seen Bambi and how horrifying that opening scene is. As kids, we're aware that, like, this is a problem, that there's no moral reason, justification for doing this, because we don't need it for our health. That's the thing. We're not in a survival situation where we need this stuff for our health.
Yeah.
It's not good for our health. So to then go out and say, my taste buds are worth more than the life of a sentient individual that was born into this ecosystem to maintain balance and biodiversity in the ecosystem, that's kind of, you know, a little bit egoistic for us to put our taste buds above the life
an
of
attempt
others.
to just like reduce an animal's life to that of comfort, I would say.
And that animal is someone's mom, brother, sister, father. You know, they have families, they feel love, they feel pain and suffering just in the same way as we do. Now, they're not the same as humans. We don't want to give them rights to drive cars and buy houses, but we can at the very least, respect that they have sentience. They have a will to live. You know, they try to avoid pain when you inflict it on them. And that tells us they do want to live a life free of suffering. And when we go in and say, oh, it's the natural cycle of life for me to go in and pull my finger on a gun and move my finger just a little bit and instantly take the life out of the ecosystem. Yeah, that's just not really the cycle of life. There's nothing natural about that cycle. You're ending that life early.
Right.
Whereas it would have died naturally by an actual omnivore or carnivore like a wolf.
Just trying to survive. So like the only time that it can be justified is in a an actual death
survival situation.
But since we're no longer those types of animals anymore, we shouldn't have to.
Yep, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I used to work on a horse ranch.
Okay.
And we had this wonderful horse. Her name was Dar. She was in her 40s. She was as old as the day is long. So she was twice as old as I ever, or actually no, I was 40. She was 3 times as old as I was.
Wow.
And I was just like, and blind, couldn't see, blind, partially deaf. The only way she knew you were there is that you'd have to like kind of rub your hand across her so that she'd know that you were there. Yet there was one thing that she could always tell. She could always tell if her son, and her son's soul, son, get it? Soul, meaning son, her son. I thought that was funny. She could always tell when her son was near her.
Interesting.
Even though she was blind and partially deaf, she could always just kind of tell that he was there. Maybe it was a smell, maybe it was something else.
Sure, yeah.
But she always seemed to like kind of actively get excited whenever she was like near him and everything, because I don't know. I always compared it to how my mother reacted when I was first walking.
Oh, interesting.
I could babble nonsense and she'd be proud of me. So that's kind of how I feel that Dar probably felt towards Soul.
So yeah, when we put ourselves in the perspectives, in the shoes of the victims, that we're oppressing, then it kind of changes things. It puts things into perspective. We start to look outside of ourselves and go, you know what? Maybe it is a little bit
been a mother,
narcissistic.
So, I
but I'm sure you have loved ones, right? Yeah. And you wouldn't want someone else to come in and murder your loved one, end their life short. Yeah. Unless, of course, that person was experiencing suffering. Like if the horse was getting so old and so debilitated that was experiencing extreme pain and suffering, it would actually be the moral choice to euthanize that animal and save them of the suffering.
Yeah, after Dar was, she was already, weak and old. She wasn't in pain,
right.
But eventually her arthritis got to be too much. You could see that she would like actively kind of stamp her feet so that one could get breaks from the other. And then after that, of course, we decided that it would be best if we just put her down where she was. She was 46 when she died.
Wow.
It was a sad day. I was pretty sad that day, but it was I don't know. I didn't want her to feel like she had to go on.
Yeah, you try to give them the best life you can up until it seems like that suffering is outweighing the joy you're getting out of life.
Yeah, my dog had cancer, and we obviously had to put him down. But it was just like what was I supposed to do? Just let him be alive and just actively whine and whimper and be in pain because I was gonna be sad? No.
In that case, it's totally a show of mercy. But yeah, if you go out into the environment and you're like, we also have a wildlife depletion rate of about 50% now, to where all the wildlife is depleted because of overhunting. These conservationists that are like, oh, we need to save the species by species population control. So you can go out and you can hunt this type of bird, and you can go out and hunt this type of deer or this type of wolf. We're finding that actually led us to more of a problem. It was a quick little band-aid on a gushing wound. It temporarily for a year or two solved the problem, and then we saw it exacerbated. Whereas we're noticing practices such as providing sanctuaries and wildlife reserves to where we can relocate animals, bring them in, they'll start to flourish, and help the vegetation too, help climate change and other ecological crises.
It was actually interesting. I don't know if you heard from the story, but they they acquired sanctuary and raised like this whole pack of wolves at one point, and then they reintroduced them into the wild as the species put back into the wild where it was supposed to be, and actually decreased the deer population, which in turn brought back a lot of the vegetation, which in turn brought back the smaller critters, which in turn brought back the birds, which in turn brought back more deer, which in turn brought more of the wolves, and then the ecosystem just kind of reclaimed itself within.
It's beautiful, and it's really amazing when you let biodiversity take over.
It was just one species just reintroduced, and it was back to normal.
But yeah, see, now we have government officials that are very corrupt, that are bought out by the NRA, and these types of hunting organizations, and they're funding the environmentalism that is actually continuing to perpetuate the same problems rather than going to a solution like what you described there. It's really fascinating. Yeah, so like I said, if your friend kind of starts to think about it in a different way, and I respect self-sufficiency.
Sure.
I like where his head's at, you know, that he wants to escape from the corporatism of his food, but there's ways to do that, you know, having your own backyard gardens and stuff like that. It's going to be much better for the environment rather than taking a living sentient being out of the environment.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking with me.
I appreciate it. What's your name?
I'm Gage. What was your name?
Gage Jackson.
Jackson, pleasure to meet you.
It was great meeting you. I appreciate your time.
You have a good day.
You too.